One of the things I cherish most about Unity Renaissance is our diversity. Diversity not only in terms of race, but also in terms of age, sexual orientation, gender identity, nationality, religious background, political affiliation, and more. Diversity makes this a resplendent community. One that approaches, in my mind, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s idea of the beloved community, and that outpictures Jesus' ethic of inclusion. On Sundays, as I look out at you, I am so inspired because I believe that if we can live in love and harmony here, we can do it in the larger world. And yet, living in diversity isn't necessarily easy. It requires us to stretch. It challenges us. It requires that we be willing to let go of preconceived notions and sometimes even face the hard truths about ourselves. Dr. King famously said that 11 a.m. Sunday is the most segregated hour in America. I think that might be because people are generally more comfortable worshiping with people who are like them, rather than taking on the possible discomfort of being with people whose lives and cultures and backgrounds are different from their own. Because let's face it, when you step into a more diverse environment, you are often leaving your comfort zone, right? And you may feel a little awkward at first. You may be a little unsure what to say or do. You may have some fear about offending someone or be braced in case someone offends you. And so it's understandable why people might tend to want to sort of flock together on Sunday mornings. I'm profoundly grateful that that is not the case here. A while back, one of our Black members said to me, confided to me, this is a dear friend, confided to me that it would be far easier for that person to go to an all-Black church. And I understand that. Although my immediate reaction was, no, don't leave. But I understand that it's a different experience here, and I just want to say that this level of diversity is new to Unity Renaissance. We are still evolving. We have more to learn, but there is a lot of love here. And so to me, learning to live in diversity is kind of like a dance, right? Just like when you're a little shy at first, you're meeting someone who has a different background than you, and you take a few steps forward, and then maybe you step back a little bit. You move together this way, you move together that way, and then it starts to get easier. And then it begins to flow. And then it feels like joy. And it feels glorious. Nevertheless, inevitably, there are missteps along the way. I have certainly made my share of mine. Saying or doing the wrong thing, being unaware, putting my foot in it. I may even misstep today, who knows? But the important thing is that when that happens, to not give up on the dance altogether, but rather to make amends, to apologize as needed, and to commit to doing better, but to keep going. Because ultimately, our ability to live in diversity will depend on how well we can learn to see and know and appreciate each other as individual human beings, not looking at each other as members of a group that we have preconceived notions about or have assigned characteristics to. Learning to live in diversity in this way means being willing, or actually refusing, to categorize people as a they, and instead discover and celebrate them as you. So 2 weeks ago, I had the great joy of participating in our unjudged experiment. How many of you had that experience as well? That experiment was about giving us who are participating the opportunity to have one-on-one conversations with people whose backgrounds, whose life experiences are different from our own, one-on-one for about 45 minutes. Well, the first conversation I had was with a woman who had grown up in the Jim Crow South. She was the daughter of a prominent black businessman and minister who rose to success against all odds and in incredible ways uplifted his family as well as his community. And as she was telling me about her father and her upbringing, she said that at that time everything was segregated. And she shared how when she was 9 years old, the Ku Klux Klan burned a cross down the street in her neighborhood. Well, that took my breath away, imagining that scene, imagining that little girl viewing that scene. And so I asked her, what was that like for you? And she said it was very frightening. And then I asked, did it make you hate white people? And she said, no. She said, I was never taught to hate white people. I was just taught that that's the way things were. And then she added that her father had known many of the men who were wearing the white hoods, that he did business with them, that he knew their families. Well, later I reflected on that, and I was struck by the fact that the Ku Klux Klan was relating to black people as a group, as a monolith, if you will, with their notions, their prejudices about them. But she and her family were relating to white people as individuals. And that is the key difference. To be able to get close to people, to know them as another human being like you who has their wants and desires and their strengths and their weaknesses and their dreams, and to make that kind of heart connection. You see, overcoming racism and any kind of prejudice really depends on that. Being willing to get to know people as individuals and open our hearts, rather than relating to them as groups. You know, Jesus knew this, and he taught it. It's often overlooked, but in Jesus' ministry, he very pointedly attacked the so-called purity system that was in place in Jewish society. The purity system basically said, these folks are considered acceptable, and these are not. And when he told the parable of the Good Samaritan, it was just such a powerful additional theme to that people overlook, because he made the Samaritan, who was the most denigrated and sort of despised person in Jewish class society at that time, he made him the hero. He lifted him up. And he said, be careful who you say is righteous and who is not righteous. And as we well know, Jesus also broke bread with the outcasts, right? He championed the oppressed. He empowered women, all to let us know that every single person is an expression of God. Every single person is worthy of love and dignity and respect. And he called us to be able to see one another in just that way. To be able to know that despite any superficial differences at the heart, we're all the same. You know, that is probably no more important on any front right now than it is on matters of race. And so recently I read this book. Some of you may have read it. It's called How to Be an Anti-Racist. Anybody read it? By Ibram X. Kendi. And an anti-racist, as he defines it, is in part someone who embraces racial equality rather than racial hierarchy. I like that. So I bought this book, and when I bought it, I thought, well, this is probably sort of a, from the title, kind of a manifesto about activism, how to, I'm picturing picket signs and protests and getting out there and that kind of thing. And I thought it's probably geared toward white people to help us recognize our blind spots, to help us grow in understanding, correct our mistaken beliefs and behaviors. But actually, as I read the book, it became clear that it's for all of us. So Kendi talks about in the book, he's an African American. He begins by recognizing his own racism at various times in his life against other blacks, particularly if he felt they were, quote unquote, letting the race down, and also against whites. He said, I used to be racist most of the time. I am changing. He notes that we all face, quote, the basic struggle to be fully human and to see that others are fully human. In that endeavor, we must resist the urge to label ourselves or others as good or bad, to vilify people, these are my words, as racist or herald them as anti-racist. These labels, he says, are not fixed identities. We can be a racist one minute and an anti-racist the next. I found that rather liberating and revelatory. It said to me that we're all works in progress, and we're all in this together. The important thing is to keep learning, to keep growing, to do our part to make a difference. In today's world, there are two fronts on which our progress is desperately needed, not just on race, but on all the issues that divide us. And first is on the policy front. We must address the ideas and policies that harm specific groups of people, that perpetuate inequities, restrict rights, and inflict suffering. Friends, the best way to do that right now is to vote. And I encourage you to do so this week and to tell others to do the same. Tuesday's election is critical. I share the view that the future of our democracy depends on it, so please, please, please vote. And the second area where progress is needed is on the personal front. We must each open our minds and shift our consciousness. And I know no better way to do that than by getting to know people whose lives and backgrounds are different than our own. That was the premise of the Unjudged Experiment. I gotta tell you guys, that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. Really an incredible, sort of a life-changing day. And the person that I spoke with in my second conversation expressed this beautifully. She's someone with a severe physical disability who is also brilliant, funny, and wise. She actually said she wants to be a comic, not a stand-up comic, but a sit-down comic. And her first words to me were, disability is an innovative, creative part of diversity in the community. She sees her disability as a strength, for it has spurred in her tremendous creativity and growth. But she knows that people are often afraid to interact with her. They're afraid of saying the wrong thing. So they'll lean over and they'll ask her something like, can you talk back? Sometimes they think she can't hear. I asked her if that is frustrating or hurtful. And she said, and her answer was golden, no. She wasn't hurt, she said. I feel they've never had the opportunity to interact with someone like me. So I'm glad to give them that chance. It just takes one person for their minds to be opened. It just takes one person for their minds to be opened. Well, that's what the participants experienced in the Unjudged Experiment, having their minds opened by one person, by one conversation. It'll come around again. You'll get another chance. but I have to show this wonderful video created by David Kennedy and Charlie O'Dowd that captures the impact of this program on those who shared their life experiences and those who listened.
The Unjudged Experiment. So we came together with Margaret Jenkins with this idea of sharing with each other within our community.
The Unjudged Experiment is about connecting with people whose racial and cultural differences they share with us, and we get to see life through their lens and get a better understanding of what it's like to walk a mile in their shoes.
When you're sitting across from somebody who is open and showing you that they care about what you have to say, you feel absolutely wonderful after you're done.
It's a lot that you can learn, and it's a lot that we can learn from you.
I am going to go home and think about this day and how different everybody is and how wonderful we all are.
The presenters were so honest and brave, sharing what they experienced in their lives, and it just made me feel honored that they opened up like that to me.
And all you have to do is open up and share with people, and you find us that we're more alike than we are different.
I learned that everybody, it's a person, as sensitive and as fearful as I am.
What I needed from this, I received. And thank you very much.
And how it was very therapeutic to purge all of these things from an earlier time in life.
In actuality, it was healing for me and allowing what I call, like in one of my poems, the shit becomes fertilizer. This is what this has done today.
It made me feel very grateful to be a part of this church and this loving and supportive community.
I was glad that I was afforded this opportunity to seek and explore in a safe environment and just be less judgmental and more open and more accepting.
Today I learned a lot more about myself. It's kind of helped me realize why I am who I am.
Even though we think we're different, our experiences are basically one and the same.
Thank you.
Thank you for the experience.
Thank you.
I couldn't be happier to be part of that community. Thank you.
Just to get a chance to know one another, one-on-one, and to open our hearts and minds to be receptive to who they are, and to recognize that we're all one. We are one.
That really touches me, doesn't it? This is us. This is us. It's a beautiful thing. So I want to thank the steering team of the Unjudged Experiment, Donna Shannon, Margaret Jenkins, Charlie O'Dowd, and Shafiq Amin for bringing that to us. And my message to you today is to keep this dance of diversity going. Keep this going. Make it bigger, make it better, make it deeper and more meaningful. Find ways to open your own heart and mind and make a difference. Get out there and vote this week. And then on the personal level, keep educating yourself, keep making these connections, keep seeing the world through other people's eyes and walking in their shoes. You know, we have such a glorious opportunity here to do that. So today, maybe today is the day at lunch you sit down next to somebody that you don't know, who has a different background than you, and you begin a conversation and you open a new door. Maybe you start getting more involved at Unity Renaissance, volunteering with others, taking classes with others, having discussions with people, and making new friends. Listen, I believe in you. I believe in us. There's something much bigger than us at work here. You know this. It's love. It's the power of love. It's the power of divine love. And through that love, it's through that love that we transform ourselves. And in every important way, we transform the world. Thank you, and God bless you. Let's move to our meditation. Thank you. Thanks. Can count on you for that, Alice. Thank you. Let's turn now to our meditation. I invite you to close your eyes, get comfortable in your seat, and release and let go. And really, really let go. Just feel this grace of God upon you in this moment, this beautiful spirit of energy in you, this great love that you are. Breathe into the gift that you are in this world. One flower, one blossom in this beautiful bouquet we call Unity Renaissance. Take a moment to breathe in and as you let go, appreciate the ways in which you have grown in this environment, the ways you have expanded your perspective. Maybe you felt another's pain. You've exulted in their triumph. Ways in which you've linked arms with others to make a difference. What a beautiful, sweet, precious journey. Breathe into this glorious diversity of humanity, here for us to celebrate and enjoy. And take a few moments now in the silence to open yourself to what ways in which you are ready to expand and to grow. Thank you, sweet Spirit, for the exquisite honor and privilege of sharing our spiritual journey with one another, shifting our consciousness, rising in awareness, doing our part to make this a more unified and loving world. We're so grateful. We're so grateful for God, for this place, and most of all, for each other. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen.
Flow, Spirit, flow through me as I open up to be an expression of your unfolding peace. Show, Spirit, show through me as I open up to be an expression of